So I wasn't saying leave and screw all the foreigners. No, not at all. I'm married to a foreigner for one, but well, engaged to a foreigner. But so there's potentially
that's like your one black friend in the Brexit conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not racist.
Yeah. I got a black friend. Your original position on Brexit.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I was a leaver, and what kind of threw me off totally was the negativity around being a leaver. Then suddenly, because I wanted to leave, I was then suddenly I was suddenly a racist. That
liar.
I was someone that had zero interest in supporting other people. I was like, no, I just don't believe that we should be conducting it. That's like a country is. I can't imagine how difficult it is to run a country. Never mind trying to run a whole host of different countries that speak totally different languages, that all have different pros and cons. Like, we should be working collaboratively and helping each other, but our rules should not be dictated by Brussels. Our rules should be dictated by London or wherever, Manchester, Birmingham. And we should be looking after ourselves and setting our rules in accordance with some basic guidelines and trying to work with other countries and trade. And so I wasn't saying leave and screw all the foreigners. No, not at all. I'm married to a foreigner for one, but well, engaged to a foreigner. But so there's potentially
that's like your one black friend in the Brexit conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not racist.
Yeah. Exactly. I got a black friend.
Yeah. So there was black guy. There could have been a negative consequence with it going through if Lou was kind of right. Okay, we're going to have to get married, or you're going to be kind of shipped back type of thing. But yeah, so I was that was my position. I was very disappointed with how people overreacted on the one side, and leave equals racist. When look, someone made a very clever and probably accurate point that look, I'm not saying that all leavers are racists, but all of the racists are voting for leave. And I was like, that's actually, you're probably right there. I that was a quick and clever remark. But yeah, it really segregated the country, Sean. So
can we just do a quick rewind here on that? Just to go back to that in a bit more context, because I had to do a bit of catching up, because Veg just said I know nothing about Brexit. I wonder how true that is, Veg. You seem quite switched on. I think you're full of shit, but that's okay. That's all right. We still love you. But but for those that, and to be fair, I joke, but I haven't really paid that much attention to Brexit because I didn't have a vote. I was not permitted to vote in that election. Yeah. I would have voted to stay because I didn't have enough information. I would have voted to stay because the information that the Leave campaign was claiming, when I would look it up, wasn't quite accurate to reality. I think it's a complex issue. I don't think Brexit, us leaving. So what Brexit is, just to give a wholesale overview, is Britain does not want to be subject to the rules and regulations of the EU. They want to make their own rules and laws because people here feel like that the rules and laws we're making are going to be more specific to our needs, not specific to needs of somebody represented in Germany. So there was a vote, and the vote was just very simply a yes or no vote by a government who didn't really want to leave, which is probably a dumb thing for them to do, whether you agree with Brexit or not. Let's put it on the table and let's have a conversation about it. But in reality, it's democracy. That's not how it works. So this was a bit of a timeline on what's happened. So the UK, it was 4 or 5 years ago, voted by a very motivated minority to, which I think, would you say that you would agree with that? It's not, the majority of people have always wanted to stay, but the people that were quite avid about it would have voted. And those that were sort of ambivalent and probably didn't want to go didn't show up.
I wouldn't know. All I know is that slightly more people preferred to leave than stay. I couldn't tell you more than that, mate, to be honest. I'd just be guessing.
So let's just say it was very similar to the Trump election. I think a lot of people would agree that Trump being elected president was very similar to the Brexit vote in many ways, and how it came about. People didn't expect it to happen, and the people that wanted it to happen were very passionate about it, and the people that didn't want it to happen weren't passionate about it to the degree they should have been until after the election. So now we have Britain's voted. There's no going back. And this was the timeline. And now we're in a position where we're out of Europe, and now we need to start negotiating for a better deal. Now, my position, the thing I've always struggled with in the whole campaigning piece is not so much your point of view, Hugh. I totally respect your point of view. I understand why you think how you think, and I don't quite have an opinion. But the one thing I always struggled with, and I think it's coming to fruition a bit, is there was this discussion where we don't need these people. We don't need them. We can do it fine on our own. And then the next sentence is, we're going to negotiate a great deal for us. And I always felt like those two didn't really square. So it's if we were working together and I were to say, Hugh, you can shove off. You don't give a shit about me. I don't need you. And then after I left this organization of Bearded Philosophy, I came in and said, listen, let's negotiate a deal where I can get half the videos, but I want to make sure that it benefits me more so than it did before.
I agree with you.
So you're not really going to the negotiation table with a hell of a lot. And I always thought, now we're in a position where we have a lot of rules, and Veg, I will get to your comments and questions. We have a lot of rules and guidelines, and as far as security, because Britain were part of Europol, so they were getting information on terror threats and shared information on felons and things like that. There was free trade, free access to fisheries, which is a big issue this week. And not just with travel, but with also trade and tariffs. So that's up for discussion right now. My position was I always maintained I think Europe probably has a lot less to lose than Britain does in this, but that doesn't mean Britain can't have a clear path forward on their own. So this week there was an interesting article that came up with the one area that I think a lot of people agree Britain have a lot of leverage, and that's in fisheries. And one of the things I learned this week in reading about, got my messages up there. One of the things I read was this whole fishery thing is a big area of contention because Britain has the most by far, because it's surrounded by water, has the largest area of fisheries. So, for example, 760 tons of fish caught by EU fisheries, I don't know if that's the right word, were in UK waters. 90 tons of fish caught by UK fisheries in 90 tons of fish caught by UK fisheries were in EU waters. Now, the stats I see didn't really talk about how much fish UK fisheries caught in their own waters, but there's a huge disparity there where the EU will be losing out on stocks. Now, the other side of the coin here, this isn't straightforward because in the UK, I read that, what was it? Well, the UK, so I have a quote here. While the UK will be able to catch a lot of fish over the next year, it will be difficult to sell as more than 3/4 of all fish exports currently go to the EU. So this isn't an issue that's black and white by any stretch of the imagination, because there's challenges both ways. And the more I see these stories, come to fruition, I'll just share the article here from the Express. I did look up some of the stats here because you have to be careful with who you trust. I don't know if is the Express a reasonable newspaper to trust here?
I wouldn't know, mate. I would say my estimate is not. I think more Telegraph and Guardian personally would be more trustworthy, but
I found a few figures that were pretty in line with regard to the fisheries, as far as how much fish is being caught and sold. And there are going to be issues with how this is distributed, because there is an issue where there's going to be, this is a huge selling point right here for both the EU and for the UK. And the problem now is we're in a situation where, in my view, we would have been better in this situation had everything been as it was for the fisheries, because now there's going to be, a heavy lockdown on the UK's ability to sell fish, but they're going to have more fish than they can do anything with. And then for the EU, they're landlocked, a lot of those countries, and they're not going to be able to access, the fisheries that they once were. And there's this whole discussion, this whole argument about, I don't know if you saw it, about the UK employing the Navy to protect its shores from EU fishermen.
No, I've not seen this, mate. No, this is news to me.
So to me, this was more of a negotiation tact, where right now people are saying, oh, how inappropriate it is for Britain to use the Navy to block people from coming into our waters to fish. And for me right now, we're in a position where in the EU, there's negotiation going on. And right now, both sides are flexing their muscles. So the EU is saying, go, we don't need you, but we would like the fish. And the UK is saying, fine, we're gonna break off. We're not going to come to some agreement, but you're not allowed to fish in our waters. So much so, we're even going to leak a story that we're going to have the Navy policing the shores so that EU fisheries can't come over and can't fish. And this is the situation we're in awkwardly. And we've had a few comments here. So just following up on that, if Britain didn't want to if Britain didn't want to be subject to rules other than its own, why did it join the union in the first place? And I think it comes down to just trade and movement. And the way, when you talk about the EU in your view, it reminds me a lot of how states' rights were set up in the US, because the EU is a lot like the United States in many respects. States have their own rules and regulations. And not every state has the same rules and regulations. They feel like they should have power to make their own rules and guidelines that are specific to their world. So Montana, being a very low populated area, is going to have very different needs than, let's say, New York, who has, one of the largest cities in the world regulated in it. That's not the right word, resting in it. So I think there's a lot of conglomeration between those two sets up. And I don't think there's any easy answers on this. Do you still feel like you're very much a lever over the last 4 years?
Well, do you know, just the whole unrest about, first and foremost, I wouldn't say I didn't care, but I didn't know enough. And I knew that either way, it wouldn't impact me. It's not going to impact me either way, whatever we do. I wouldn't be like, I wasn't like, contrary to what you said earlier, I wasn't a hard and fast lever. Like we had to leave. There were absolute advantages to, like I want to travel through the EU. My partner's from the EU, so going back home is easy. There are definite advantages to it. I love the idea that we're in to support each other and help each other grow and benefit from it. But there were just some things that don't make any sense. So for example, it doesn't make sense that your boss is trying to manage you and has no idea what you do. Then I don't think Brussels should be managing a country that they don't live in or understand. And we shouldn't be dictating what they do. It's just basic common sense to me. You shouldn't be running my household. I run my household because I live here, but you can have my bread. You can come to my garden. You can have fun here and we'll socialize and I'll help you grow here and I'll come to your house. But I'm not going to run your household and you're not going to run mine. It's just like, that's how I just see it very simplistically like that. So the whole thought of having a massive, and the amount of money we were spending on it wasn't like we've got everything, down here. The numbers that actually came out of light that they were incorrect at the end, and there was some misinformation there, which is a massive injustice, to be honest. But the numbers that they were touting that we were spending on this massive membership, to what end? And we were one of the biggest contributors to it, the UK. And to go back to Veg's point here, because I want to kind of give her the benefit from putting comments here. I can't honestly tell you. I think it was near the time that I was born, back in the 80s is when I had no idea what happened. And I haven't looked into the reasons why. And I would hazard a guess that they were very different to how they are now. But it just seems it's some kind of like mafioso kind of Sons of Anarchy thing. No, you're in here to the end, buddy. Like you're part of the EU, you ain't going anywhere, and we're going to make it really painful for you. It's like, look, if we don't want to be part of the EU, then let's just have like a grown-up conversation about it. It's got very political and people flexing, and it's a deeply complicated issue, far above my concept of what's going on here. But no, I kind of still stand by the fact that countries should be dictating themselves. Do we look down on Luxembourg or do we look down on Norway, the fact they aren't in the EU? I certainly don't. I've been to Norway anyway, and I think they're both Switzerland. Sorry, not I meant to say Switzerland, not Luxembourg. But these sovereign states, they're why can't you make a success? I think it can work. I think I can work for myself, and I can make it work. I don't have to be part of your organization and be dictated to when you don't understand my circumstances. So that's fundamentally where I'm coming from.
I think it's in this. I think that's 100% a fair point. And I think
the inflated price for that. So the supposedly millions of euros a week we were paying to be part of this thing, that just didn't make sense to me. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I think it's a lot more. And that's when I started looking at that. It's more complicated than that, because it wasn't as if all that money was going out. There wasn't any money coming back in, or there wasn't any resource coming back in.
Yeah,
and I think where this whole Brexit thing came about, my understanding is a lot of this was down to trade. It was down to access as sort of the two main drivers. And for the same reason national insurance works, it's about buying power as well. So the EU as a negotiator is a much more powerful negotiator with trade with, let's say, China and the United States than let's say Germany is as a whole on its own, because you're now pooling your resources. So when you talk about your neighborhood and your block, I don't want to be a part of this club, or I don't want to be a part of this street or whatever. I want out. Fine, you can have out. However, when the neighborhood pulls together to buy insurance, and buy electric, on some sort of a group plan, that's where things change a little bit, because at that stage, you now aren't part of that party, and you're not going to be part of that benefit, which is fine. You have the choice to do that. And I think that's where we're seeing things happening right now in the EU. They're making a determination, and they have every right to be an asshole in the negotiation, which they are being. They're trying to push for things that they wouldn't ask another country to give them. Because if, let's say, they make an easy time of Britain leaving the EU, it's going to, there's going to be other countries that are going to question, the efficacy of staying in the EU, and maybe we should leave because Britain was able to make their way on their own. And that's going to have a huge impact into how functional the EU is as a state. So I think they're very much making an example out of them. And I think, the UK is struggling with the reality, which it doesn't mean it's going to be bad long term. It's not a third world country, but I don't know that it's realistic to expect the EU to want to be willing negotiators, given what's at stake for them. They don't necessarily have to be. If you don't want to be a part of the benefits, that's fine. But you can't necessarily expect to still be getting benefits if you're not going to be a part of that. And I think it's going to be a long-term process.